Today we're going to be talking a little bit about how we can find the area of triangles. So please take notes in your notebook as we go through this information. Let's start with finding the area of a rectangle. So if we wish to find the area of this rectangle, we know that the formula is that we multiply length times width. So for this one, we're going to do the 6 times the 10. And we know that when we do 6 times 10, we get an area of 60 square centimeters or 60 centimeters squared. So what if we're asked to find the area of this red triangle? Well, if you look at the picture, you can clearly see that the red triangle appears to be half of the original rectangle. So we're still going to work with this 6 and this 10, but instead this time we're going to divide it in half. So 6 times 10 we know is 60, and then we're going to divide that in half. So the area of just the red triangle would be 30. So based on that understanding, the area of a triangle, let me get rid of these. So the area of a triangle is found by taking the height measurement and multiplying it by the length measurement, pretending that it's a regular rectangle or square or a parallelogram, and then finding half of that. So you're going to see a variety of different ways that this may be written. It may be written as 1/2 the length times the height. It may also be written length times the height divided by 2. You may also see it written base times height divided by 2. So let's look at some examples. If this is our triangle, the base is 8, the height is 4. So when we multiply 8 times 4, we get 32. But we only have half of a regular rectangle, so we would divide that 32 in half, and the area of this one would be 16 square centimeters. How about this one? This, of course, would be a square because each side is congruent. So if we multiplied 8 times 8, that would give us 64, but that would be for a full square. This one does need to be split in half, so when we do 8 times 8, which is 64 divided by 2, we get an area of 32 square centimeters. This one says 8 times 3. So when we do 8 times 3, of course, that gives us 24. But then when we cut that one in half, we get an area of 12 square centimeters. This one is 14 times 2. So of course, 14 times 2 would give me an area of 28. But then if I decide to cut that in half, because this is a triangle, then I would get an area of 14 square centimeters. A larger area, so 15 times 20, would be the area if this were a complete square or rectangle. So that would give me a total area of 300 square centimeters, but because this is only a triangle, not the full rectangle, I'm going to cut it in half, and that means that my area for this one is 150 square centimeters. Don't be scared if your triangles are turned sideways, because you can also just work with this one. Remember that the formula is base times height divided by 2. So what you would need to do with this is literally turn your paper sideways until you had a base. So the base for this one would be 8 centimeters, of course, times the height of 20, because when you turn this sideways, this now becomes the height. And that would give me 160. But then when I divide that by 2, I get an answer of 80. So in a situation where you have multiple measurements, you have to really be careful to look for the base and the height. So on this one, you notice that the hypotenuse, which is the long side of a triangle, is labeled as 8.5 centimeters. This short side is labeled as 6 centimeters. This base, which would actually be the base if we were to sit this up, would be 14 centimeters. And then, of course, from here to here would be the height. So the height is 7 centimeters. So to find the answer for this one, you would have to do 14 times 7, because base times height we ignore this 8.5 and this 6 because they're useless to me. And 14 times 7 gives me 98, but we of course want to find half of that. So that means that our area for this particular triangle would be 49 square centimeters. So what if a triangle doesn't have a right angle? So for this one, just like with that example we just looked at, you have to determine the height at the tallest point. So of course this is the base, and this one doesn't have a right angle. So what you would do is you would look for the tallest point, which would be from this peak right here all the way to the bottom, and you see that it's labeled over here as that is 4 centimeters. So we can just shift that over and say, oh, okay, so this is the height of the triangle, which means we would then do 20 times 4, which of course would give me 80. But that would be the area of the full figure, so we want to divide that in half, and we, of course, are going to get an answer of 40. So the answer for this one would be 40 square centimeters. So let's take a look at this one. It says that the base is 8 centimeters, and the height, you know because it has this here, is 10 centimeters. Notice that that's the distance from the tallest point to the bottom. So if we multiply 8 times 10, that gives me 80. And then we cut that in half. And of course, that would give me 40. So the area for this one would also be 40 square centimeters. I hope that this has been helpful to you. Please feel free to go back and watch it again if you need to remember how to find the area of a triangle.